With the Gauntlet fast approaching, it is time again for me to talk about some Gauntlet builds. In the past, I've tried to balance it between builds for people looking to compete and builds for people looking to play casually. And I feel like that's been a bit of a mistake. Now, feel free to correct me down in the comments, but I think most people who are looking to actually compete, actually win something, get a top rank for a class, they're going to have already done their research and have been practicing for days, if not weeks, by the time this video comes out. So instead, I'm going to focus exclusively on builds for people who maybe haven't played Gauntlet before, or maybe have played it but only once. Basically, this is for everyone else, not for someone looking to win something. And if I find out that next time more people would like to see competitive builds, things that aren't necessarily going to be easy to play, that aren't necessarily going to be the best build, but might be the best thing for something that other people aren't going to be doing, then I'm perfectly happy to do that. And if hardcore or the Gauntlet just aren't your thing, I totally get it, because it's not my thing either. But I will be talking about other events, including Endless Heist and, more importantly, Atlas Invasion, doing some build suggestions for that, along with potentially talking about what I'm going to be playing personally. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, then be sure to leave a like on the video, sub to the channel, ring the bell, and let me know down in the comments which event you're most excited for. So from here, what are some good builds to get you into Gauntlet? I'm going to be using Puri Ninja, I'm going to be using SSF Scourge HC, and I'm going to be using Day 3. I think Day 3 is a good balance between builds that aren't necessarily going to make it and fall off in maps, and builds that require a lot of knowledge and skill to put together. Like with anything, the list isn't going to be all-inclusive, and like with anything, your own game experience and your own experience with hardcore is going to matter a lot. If you rush, if you're not careful, if you're not prepared for Weaver, the best build may not save you. So take it slow. Be aware of the mods. Be keenly aware of what type of damage things do. If something does fizz damage, prepare with a granite flask. Maybe get a basalt flask. Run determination. Whatever you need to do, or whatever tools are available to you, utilize them. If your first white tier map ends up rolling enemies have increased crit strikes, do not run that map. You're going to die, and you're going to have to start leveling again, or that'll be the end of your Gauntlet experience. The biggest difference between softcore and hardcore is in softcore, you get to make bad decisions, and you're only punished with an EXP loss. In hardcore, you can only make a bad decision once per character. So I don't think it's going to come as any surprise to anyone when I say Champion is the best ascendancy for a new player in Gauntlet. It's 40% of the people by Day 3 solo Southbound Scourge Hardcore. Speaking of Scourge Hardcore, don't press your Scourge button in the Gauntlet. That's asking to die. If you know what you're doing, if this video isn't really for you, and you say, but I did it already, I got to level 100 in Hardcore, then cool. But if you're someone who's just doing Gauntlet for the first time, don't press the Scourge button. The risk will far outweigh the rewards, especially with how enemies scale and how projectiles can overlap and just instantly murder you. But 40% of players on SSF Scourge HC are champions. A vast majority of them are Toxic Rain. You can also be almost any melee skill. If you want something like Shield Crush, a Shield Crush champion is going to be great. If you want something like Spectral Helix, a little bit of a wonky ranged melee mix, do it only if you've played Spectral Helix before. Don't do that as your first build for Gauntlet. It's going to be real rough if you've never played the skill. I feel very safe recommending solo self-found hardcore viable Toxic Rain builds like Darkies. I feel very safe recommending something like Shield Crush. Now, you could also be a Gladiator for Shield Crush. You could be doing Bleed. You could be a champion. You could be Fizz Impale. You'll have Fortify. You'll have Block. You'll have a lot of defenses, and you'll generally be okay. Another thing that's very popular is Seismic Trap Saboteur. Seismic Trap does all the damage, so Saboteur means you need to stack as many defenses as possible to leverage the fact that you get blind. You'll want some evasion. Mage Bane probably works pretty well. You can have decent decks. And ideally, I'd work in some fizz reduction in the form of armor, endurance charges, or both. Righteous Fire Inquisitor also seems to be doing pretty well. And like with Endless Delve, I'm going to go with a recommendation of just copy whatever Pox is doing. He knows his stuff and he knows RF. If you want something that's a little bit on the boring side, but really easy to play, DD or VD, great option. Your corpse scaling, that's going to give you all the damage you need. You're a necromancer, which means you get block and a lot of other good defenses. And overall, it's a very easy build to play. Some people say it's boring, but if your first Gauntlet experience is, this is kind of boring and I never died, then that's probably better than, oh, I couldn't get past level 5. Or at least, I'd think so. There's quite a bit of Poisonous Concoction Occultist, and I'm Exile's doing really well on it here. I have a hard time recommending it though, because I'm Exile knows what he's doing. And I feel like this is the sort of skill that has just enough delay on damage, is just reliant enough on knowing how enemies in Path of Exile work. But if you go into it without knowing, if you've never played Poisonous Concoction this league, it's probably not going to feel very good. You're probably going to struggle, especially early on. Now, if you've played Poisonous Concoction, if you know the skill inside and out, maybe it's not a bad choice. But just be aware that the setup that he is using here, and the setup that I've seen a lot of people use, is incredibly vulnerable to spells until you get your Magebane and until you cap spell suppression. So be especially aware of bosses like the Weaver that have dangerous spell damage early on. Some other quick callouts: Earth Shatter, it's still good on Marauders, it's still very good on Champion. Cold Dot Occultist, very beginner friendly. I think this is another thing that I would rate up at the top with Toxic Rain for if you want something that's a comfort pick, if you want something that has a lot of good inbuilt defenses, you're chilling enemies, making it harder for them to hit you. You'll do enough damage. You probably won't be the fastest, although if you sling, that will greatly accelerate the speed of your build. But you won't be the slowest either, because the slowest person is the dead person. And it's very easy to have enough defenses to not die on either a Cold Slinger or a Cold Dot Vortex build. You also get to leverage a lot of the nice defenses in Occultist, such as Malediction, and you also get Frigid Wake, which is a really underrated node, and being completely freeze immune from a fairly low level just feels good. Now, I wanted to go over to the Endless Delve SSFHC ladder for a minute, just to show what a little bit of influence from the modern meta has had on people's choices. I don't think all of these builds are good for Gauntlet. In fact, some of them are probably pretty iffy with how dangerous Gauntlet enemies get. This is more to demonstrate that you don't have to be a Toxic Rain champion. There's relatively few Toxic Rain champions, because Toxic Rain isn't all that amazing down in Delve. We see more things like Detonate Dead or Volatile Dead. We see more things like Cold Dot. And I expect to see quite a bit of that in the actual Gauntlet itself. One other thing that I've noticed quite a bit in Endless Delve that's actually doing quite well is Corrupting Fever on Gladiator or Ascendant. I do think that's an option, but I'd put it in the category of only play it if you know what you're doing. So what are your plans for Endless Delve? Are you just going to try hardcore for the first time? Are you hoping to win that gaming PC? Or are you going to struggle through until level 50 because you just want a free MTX box? Maybe you're bored and you just have nothing better to do, so you're going to YOLO a build with zero practice and see how it goes. But if you do have any plans or any expectations, I'd love to hear about them down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. And again, a special thanks to my patrons and YouTube channel members. If you want to support me, you can do so by clicking the links down in the description below or on screen right now. You can also support by making purchases through my Nexus page. Or if you just want to chill and hang out, be sure to join the Discord. Again, links for everything are down in the description below. Thank you, and have a great day.